in 2005. So predominantly since then I've worked in learning disability care management teams, so local authority social work. Has been primarily with learning disabilities and autism primarily, and so I'm currently just managing a team in Salisbury, which is relatively new for me. I've done some management experience before in residential care for adults with autism and behaviours that challenge. But predominantly it's been working directly with customers, completing things like care act assessments, planning care, working with families, and kind of trying to develop services in the community over that time, supporting people in residential care to move into supported living, promote independence. With learning disabilities, and absolutely, it's a hugely rewarding role. And despite the challenges, I find it a really exciting place to work, an environment to work in. You really can make a difference. But it's obviously it can be really demanding. There are limited resources, and that's only going to get worse. Being able to kind of help, kind of direct and plan where they go, work with customers to deliver services is I still find it really exciting despite those challenges that are every day, everywhere. So it'll mostly be the amount of demand that we have coming through for the services that's needed versus the amount of resources versus kind of expectations about what can be delivered. So balancing that is a challenge. But again, it's kind of it's a challenge that I kind of do enjoy. I believe in having honest conversations with people and explaining kind of working with customers and families to explain that there are limited resources, but that doesn't mean there aren't things that we can do. I think specifically for social work as well. I mean, I know when I first started, it was very much kind of a care management focused type role, so just planning care, which wasn't really social work, and that the actual value of a social worker was hard to work out where it was. Whereas I actually think as a social worker, we can be a really important role in people's lives just on its own. It doesn't have to be social work. It doesn't have to be a package of care that we're creating. Social work can add value to people's lives through the profession and experience that they have. And I'm really kind of passionate about exploring that and developing that. And I think that's kind of being lost quite a lot in kind of the way we go about social work these days, which is often kind of a care management kind of focus, even now, really. So yeah, that's I think that the social worker role can be really important on its own for customers and families, and quite pivotal in kind of helping them in difficult times during their life. I think after a lack of resources, especially kind of for customers with autism, there's to get limited help, you have to jump through a lot of hoops, be that either a care act assessment. I think there needs to be more mainstream type resources that are available without having to jump through those hoops. People with those needs, I think they need to be developed, and I think that that'll be good for the end user, and it'll be good for the resources as well. I think it will help stretch their resources, because at the moment, you kind of feel like you have to go for a specialist kind of assessment, which can be a big chunk of work in itself to get something quite small at the end of it of help. And that's disappointing for everyone. And obviously, I think actually we can get better outcomes if we could have more access to kind of mainstream type services, better quality advocacy in the kind of community that people can access without having to jump through all these hoops. That people, I thought for a while that I probably was dyslexic. I wasn't certain, but but for a lot of my career, I've always struggled with the paperwork side of. And on reflection, it's kind of hard to. I almost don't know how I have managed to do that and to stuff, because it is everywhere, and it does run through everything we do. And that's for the pre kind of diagnosis. There's been I was kind of lots of masking, lots of disguising kind of the problem, or lots of it kind of feels like for almost a little bit of dishonesty, almost in terms of kind of how you're presenting, kind of how you are, and what your workarounds feel like you're being a bit naughty, you're cheating in some way. And what it feels like to me, it feels like so a computer has two different types of memory. Computer has like a hard drive and RAM, and like all your major data and everything will be in your hard drive, but for your quick access stuff, it'll be using kind of RAM to be able to access stuff quickly. And it feels like to me, I just don't have enough RAM. That everything is there in my hard drive, but it's difficult to process the information quickly. So in team meetings or in information where I've got to read lots of data, so we have various meetings where we present, where we have to present a kind of updates on team performance and stuff like that. I'll struggle to do those in an effective way because I can't process that amount of data quickly and have a conversation at the same time. A couple of years ago, just before the diagnosis, I just was looking into it more and kind of understanding kind of dyslexia more, and kind of what I came to understand was actually the things I'm good at and I'm well regarded for come from the same place as the thing I'm really bad at. That's the only time I really understood they belong together. And for me, it was that understanding that they came from the same place. That was a bit of a light bulb moment. And that's kind of what spurred me to get the diagnosis and to actually confirm my suspicions. But it was just getting that understanding that actually that there are qualities that people with dyslexia bring to social care. And I know that you can be really regarded well for those. And actually, we need to have, it's better if we can have open conversations about the actual problems that you do have and that are difficult, if not impossible, to overcome. Expectations can change, and I think it enables people to achieve their full potential, rather than being held back a bit. I think there were some general qualities. Obviously, the people with dyslexia experience it to different degrees that they can bring to the party. And I think so. People have always said to me, kind of, I'm really good at building teams. I'm really good with kind of interpersonal relationships, especially on a one-to-one level. I'm really empathetic, which is got to be a good skill if you're in social care to kind of have that. I'm an intuitive kind of thinker more, and that helps me kind of connect and identify problems. I'm a big picture thinker. So I'm always thinking and looking at things in a 360 dynamic kind of way, whether that's at an individual level with a customer or with a team. So I'm always thinking, what triggered that? What's the bigger picture, the triggers behind that? And sometimes that can be tiring and unnecessary to do that, and other times it's kind of useful to be able to kind of filter. So I'm kind of aware of that, and kind of I can switch on and off kind of as required. Kind of that's my natural inclination to always try and kind of break that, see the bigger picture. Conversely, I'm not very good with kind of detailed, focused kind of stuff, planning. So, and that's kind of what I always struggled with. So I'm not a very good manager, but I've stronger leadership skills. And I've always felt that. I just never understood that was part of issue of something from the dyslexia. When now that kind of I understand it more, I'm able to have those conversations with my managers about, this is what I can do, and these are going to be the problems that I've had. In the past, people have said to me before I was diagnosed for a long time, and people have said to me, sometimes you can be the absolute best at something, and other things you're absolutely abysmal at. And I think it's confusing for people, and it was confusing for me too. And now actually I understand why. Yeah, that is true. You can look at the profile, you can see I'm absolutely abysmal at some things on a profile, and I'll be absolutely okay and quite good at other things as well. It's now I understand it. It makes sense. I think for a manager to understand that, it's helpful for them too. So some things I feel like really confident in terms of what I do, and I'll look really confident, and other things I'll look like I'm floundering. But yeah, I see it's a processing thing, and in team meetings, I'm normally really quiet. For example, I'm normally taking on board. I'm listening, taking on board. I'm normally, if I've got something to say, I'm normally very, very short and specific and concise. I've tried to turn it to my advantage. So obviously, I listen, and then obviously, make sure what I do say is hopefully higher value in terms of actually this is what we need to do. I feel like I have to listen. I'll listen to lots of information, a conversation, a team meeting. but I'm processing all this and I'm just chucking lots of information out, like the chit chat, and just discarding it and trying to get to the crux of it, and then trying to see the bigger picture of what that problem is and trying to understand it and then coming to a solution. So part of my career, I'd say I felt really stressed by all of that. I felt really, really absolutely on the brink, and it's a stressful job for anyone with without any of those issues. But it's for a long time before I really understood it. It's really hard to navigate, and you just feel completely stupid basically all the time. You feel like you're hiding your stupidity, even though you kind of know you're not. It's just because you don't understand about the processing and stuff like that. So now that I understand it better myself, and I can communicate that to people, it's kind of okay.
Yeah.
I've still got a personal issue with the diagnosis. To me, I personally, I feel it's a bit like trying to split brain cells. There's lots you don't understand about it. It's and the dyspraxia and but at the same time, the data is the data. It is that is the outputs. The outputs are the outputs. There's still a lot there that we don't understand. And I don't overthink the diagnosis or the impact. I think everyone is going to be impacted in a slightly different way with all our own personalities.
You adapted your work methods to help with your dyslexia and dyspraxia?
It's very depending on what role I've been in, but basically I build relationships and I build people around me and I build support networks and I build tribes. And I delegate where I can. So things I can't do, I delegate. It's I've realised it's one of my strong assets as well. I'm able to do that in an authentic way, in a way that can I can help develop people's individual skills and their own strengths and individual abilities, and we're all different. And I'm able to help. I feel because of my experience, where kind of the experience and the challenges that I've had, I can have a little bit of empathy about how when people come into social work, about how they feel. Obviously, I appreciate people to have their own experiences and take on it, but there are some themes that are pretty common when people walk and start working with us, and I feel I'm able to help people overcome that and help them find their own strengths and actually really and how to build that team around a team of individuals with their own strengths and confidence. I think sometimes in one of my experiences in social work is that there isn't often very good leadership, when they're not often good at nurturing teams and individual members of staff. People just end up being bombarded with loads of quite challenging, emotionally challenging and practically challenging work, and then leadership being disappointed why they get bad outcomes. And actually, I think we all need nurturing and development on our path. And that's we need to be able to work with people and build those work with people at an individual level and help develop them, help them grow and find their own niche and confidence and their own professional voice. I think that's one of my strengths, what I'm good at. But I guess I never before. I never had the confidence before to do that in a management role for social services, because of the challenges I have around the writing and the processing of information. Before the diagnosis, I never really had the confidence to say, "Oh, that's okay. I can still do that bit. And I don't necessarily need to have all that either." And I think the conversation's changed as well. I think it is more. I think generally there is more insight and understanding of neurodiversity and kind of the value there. I think 20 years ago there wasn't that kind of discussion, whereas now it's kind of seems to be a kind of a general day-to-day narrative. So I've kind of took advantage of that, really. Services are looking for people with solutions. We've got a problem. There's too little resources and there's not enough. There's a lot of customers need. There's limited resources. They need the people who can actually come up with solutions and answers, and that can be to be able to effectively lead teams and grow people's individual skills and stuff like that. Rather than, I think before it was kind of like you had kind of feeling you had to fit into a certain skill box to be able to do a management. Whereas I think actually, they know they've got to have there's potentially some skills there that people with dyslexia and other neurodiversities have, which actually are valuable, really valuable, and not just in a nice to have, but essential for the business to help it be where it needs to be. And that's what I'm quite passionate in terms of trying to demonstrate to other people who I work with. Although you've got these problems, actually you have really high value, that you'll have an individual skill or expertise that mainly developing, which will actually are really, really important. But yeah, I know sometimes when you start in social, all you're faced with is absolutely totally inaccessible IT systems and a whole heap of work, and you're like, how on earth do I fit in here? It's like, so yeah, I guess trying to bridge that gap, I think is, I find really exciting to be able to do that with my colleagues, really, whether they have neurodiversity or not. Really, it's hard. I think it is. There's no one answer to that. I think you maybe try and find an ally in the organisation you're kind of working in, someone who kind of does understand that. Ideally, that might be your manager or another supervisor that is able to kind of help you with that. Somebody who you trust. I think the sooner you're able to do that, the better. I think what I've seen quite often, quite an awful lot, is actually where either the problem hasn't been identified or the issue hasn't been identified, and then it's become a problem, and then it's all just become this negative circle. So you are failing in your job, you're not delivering, you're becoming depressed or whatever. The manager is becoming angry because they're not getting the work done, and it all just becomes a really unhealthy environment for everyone to be in, and everyone becomes really angry with each other, and then you go down formal disciplinary processes, and I've seen that quite a lot. And I think actually if you can have honest conversations sooner and be transparent and actually have those, what is going to be your contribution to the business and what areas do you need help in or assistance with, and have a boss that understands that and is able to, I think, and sometimes unfortunate things you may not have that. You may not, you can't have someone who's completely rigid thinking, and it says has to be done in this way. Does it have to be done in that way, or actually, does it really have to be done in that way, or is it just done in that way because you want it done in that way? I think so yeah, it's in the short answer. The earlier you can be upfront and transparent with it, the better. But I appreciate that's entirely dependent sometimes on who you're working with and where you are. You absolutely will have a strength to bring to the party. But again, I appreciate that can be really difficult to see. That's when you're early in your career, what that might be. It's there's no, I guess my side is actually we've got from the council and the people already in the council have got a responsibility to people coming through to be able to help them grow and develop in that way.
Yeah,
and to be able to make them feel comfortable to explore that. I mean, at the end of the day, there is a job to be done. That job still needs to be done. It's the council still needs output, but there is a middle. There has to be a middle ground. I think that's, and I think hopefully if you can get to that point, that's got to be the place where everyone gets what they want, basically. Hard to say. I think at the end of the day, your experience is what creates your future and experience and what you deliver. I can say things like, would it have been nice to understand it sooner? But then that would have changed to do, would of course gone down a different path. I think your individual experience is your individual experience, and I think I'm always someone. I think you have to look forward. You have to look to the future, and what impact you can make. I think lots of us come into social care because we want to make a difference. I think you won't find many people in our industry who don't start wanting to make a difference. And if you feel well supported, if you understand what you can offer, and some of the things you're going to find challenging, and then work in a transparent way to mitigate that, then you'll be able to make a greater impact. The human side of social care is going to be so important, even more so in the AI future. I think it's going to be more important, and it's going to be even more value and attached to good quality social work. And good quality social work is going to require confident people who are comfortable in their own skin and understand their own needs. So the sooner you can get to that and understand to be confident about that, the better. But each journey is their own. So